Hello, this is Max. In the last movie, we learned that evil is not defeated and has taken over Maurice. Let's watch part 2. Don't forget to subscribe. The film commences in Tarascon, France in 1956, where we meet a young boy named Jacques at the church. Father Nwuret asks Jacques to fetch some wine, and they proceed with their daily church duties. After completing his tasks, Jacques returns to the basement to store the wine. However, when he glances back, he notices a football in the room. He kicks the ball towards a dark area and becomes curious upon hearing a noise from that direction. Suddenly, the bottle breaks and Jacques, frightened, flees to inform Father Nwuret that there is someone present. As they investigate the mysterious noise emanating from the church, Father Nwuret emphasizes that whoever it is, and for whatever reason they've come, they are in the house of God and under his watchful gaze. Eerie eyes appear in the darkness, and Nwuret is lifted into the air, set ablaze, and perishes, while Jacques watches, clutching the priest's rosary. The narrative then shifts to Sister Irene, who now leads a secluded life in Italy. Mother Superior informs her that Deborah causes trouble daily, and today she even refused to go to confession. Irene visits Sister Deborah, who shares her family's history from Mississippi. When she was 4 years old, white people burned down their house. Her brothers enlisted in the army, and her father believed that since his sons were serving the country, his daughter should serve God. Mother Superior then recounts the gruesome tale of the Church of St. Carta, where a demon mercilessly killed the nuns one by one, assuming their forms to erode their faith. The Vatican dispatched a priest and a nun to vanquish the demon, using the blood of Jesus to halt its rampage. The priest became a bishop, but the fate of the nun remains unknown. The story then introduces Maurice, who works at a boarding school in France. He befriends a young Irish girl named Sophie and her teacher Mother Kate. Sophie presents Maurice with a handmade friendship bracelet, which is later snatched away by another girl who mocks Sophie. When Maurice asks for the bracelet's return, the girl refuses, claiming he is merely a servant. Maurice emphasizes that, despite his role, they should treat everyone with love and respect. Madame Laurent intervenes, urging everyone to attend their classes, and informs Maurice about cockroaches in her room, prompting him to investigate.
How did you do that?
Later, a delivery girl arrives at the boarding school with groceries. While returning after storing the items in the storeroom, she hears unsettling noises. Kara sees Maurice, who is acting strangely. When she inquires about his well-being, he suddenly looks at her, causing her to collapse in fear. After this disturbing encounter, he is confronted by a demon nun, trying to escape, but the door slams shut, and the nun eliminates him. Later that night, Mother Superior informs Irene that someone wishes to meet her. She leaves, and when Irene comes downstairs, she is shocked to find Maurice there. He implores Irene to save him and transforms into a demon. Suddenly, Irene awakens from her sleep, realizing it was a nightmare. The next day, a cardinal visits Irene and informs her about a series of disturbing incidents. The unthinkable act of a 90-year-old nun on the steps of a church in Hungary. The death of a priest during Christmas Mass in Austria. The unthinkable act of a girl who was about to become a nun in Italy. The cardinal believes these events are connected to the demon, which is moving westward into Europe but has its origins in Romania. Since Father Burke is deceased, Irene is the only one left with experience confronting this evil, and the church wants her to investigate. Irene initially refuses, citing her near-death experience in St. Carta. However, the cardinal reminds her of the miracle she performed there and insists that the church needs another miracle. As Irene travels to Tarascon, Sister Deborah joins her without permission. Irene questions Deborah's motives, and Deborah explains her struggle with belief, especially in extraordinary religious claims like turning wine into the blood of Jesus. Irene emphasizes that such miracles happen through faith in their religion. Meanwhile, Sophie's classmates bring her to the forbidden, abandoned chapel. Inside, they introduce a game called Defy the Devil. Sophie initially sees nothing sinister but is warned that the devil is watching her and should not turn around. When her attention is drawn to a painting, the girls lock her inside with a moving statue, and Sophie glimpses the demonic nun. Maurice eventually frees her, scaring the other girls away. Later, Irene and Deborah arrive in Tarascon, where a nun welcomes them. She reveals that Mass still takes place in the church, but no one attends due to the belief that the devil has cursed the church. Irene senses the devil's presence there and is soon met by Jock, who gives her a burned rosary. Deborah asks if Irene is okay. They visit Father Warrett's room and inquire about the boy who was present that night. The nun confirms the boy saw everything but has been discouraged from speaking about it. Irene asks about the helper who left shortly after the incident, known as Frenchie from Romania. Irene realizes that the demon is using Maurice to carry out its actions. Meanwhile, Kate thanks Maurice for saving Sophie from the girls. Sophie observes Maurice standing and looking up, but when Kate calls her, she sees her mother ascending the stairs. As Sophie goes downstairs, she encounters the demonic nun again, who unleashes a swarm of crows at her before disappearing. Terrified, Sophie starts descending further, but the nun reappears before her. Just in time, Kate arrives with other students, and Sophie sees the nun's figure on the wall. Meanwhile, Irene and Deborah arrive at a hotel where they had made a reservation, only to find their names missing from the register. While Deborah talks to the manager, Irene notices Jock among some children. She introduces herself and explains that the church has sent her to help. Irene asks Jock if he had the rosary with him that night. He mentions that it belonged to Father Warrett, and he took it because he was very scared. The children return, Jock leaves with them, and when Irene follows, they all mysteriously vanish, leaving her shocked. Later, Irene encounters Jock again and follows him to a magazine store. The pages of the magazines start turning by themselves, forming an image of the nun. Irene becomes frightened and hears a noise behind her, but she sees no one. As she approaches the figure, the demonic nun attacks her, causing Irene to have a vision. The nun holds a box, and as her eyes shine, Irene loses consciousness. Meanwhile, Madame Laurent encounters the possessed Maurice near the chapel's door. When she approaches him, he turns around in fear, claiming not to know what he is doing. Madame hears her son's voice from behind the chapel door, and someone attempts to open it. She unlocks the door, goes inside, and discovers Cedric. The nun's hand falls on Cedric's shoulder, and he attacks Madame, resulting in her death. The following day, Irene regains consciousness, and Deborah inquires about what happened the previous night. Irene reveals that she had a vision and now understands what the devil wants. He is using Maurice to find something, and once he discovers it, he will kill him. Deborah mentions that Jock gave her a rosary while she was unconscious. Irene examines it and recognizes the mark but can't recall where she has seen it before. Deborah recalls seeing it in a photo of one of the demon's victims, suggesting a connection. Meanwhile, Kate discovers Madame's lifeless body in the chapel, leaving her in shock. Later, the police arrive to remove Madame's body, and Kate informs Maurice that Sophie is missing. Maurice reassures Kate, promising to find Sophie. After searching, Maurice eventually locates Sophie and sits down to speak with her. Sophie expresses her belief that something is wrong with the school, mentioning that Madame never used to go to the chapel. Maurice asks if she saw or heard anything unusual, to which Sophie responds that she hasn't but simply has a feeling that something is amiss. Irene and Deborah travel to the Pilates Papes, where they show the rosary to a librarian. He identifies the emblem on the rosary as the family crest of St. Lucy. Irene recalls her vision and realizes that the demon is seeking St. Lucy's eyes. Deborah and Irene learn from the librarian that when St. Lucia was killed by infidels, her family managed to escape, spreading across the world and protecting the sacred relic known as the Eyes of St. Lucia. The librarian speculates that the demon, once an angel rejected by God, seeks to regain its lost powers. Irene deduces that the demon wants the Eyes of St. Lucia, and the librarian confirms that the demon has been hunting down Lucia's descendants for centuries. He tells Irene that she must use the eyes to send the demon back to hell, but Irene expresses her uncertainty about the relic's whereabouts. The librarian reveals that a monk named Jean-Paul Ritter possessed the eyes and wrote a letter to the Vatican, stating that he had hidden them in his monastery, which is now a boarding school located an hour away. Back at the school, Irene confides in Deborah about her mother's religious visions and her father's disbelief, which led to her mother's disappearance. Meanwhile, something unusual occurs with Maurice while he is with Sophie and Kate, and they notice an inverted cross on his neck. The demonic nun appears, terrifying them all, and Maurice attempts to escape with them. Irene and Deborah arrive on the scene, and Maurice recognizes Irene, claiming that he has returned. However, Irene informs him that the demon is inside him, which he initially dismisses. But soon, Maurice is overtaken by the demon, attacking Irene and Deborah. Irene commands the demon in the name of God to leave Maurice, weakening him, and Deborah knocks him unconscious. They tie him up and head to the chapel with Kate and Sophie, searching for the hidden relic. Sophie mentions that the goat in a mosaic turns red-eyed when sunlight hits the window. Deborah uses a flashlight to make the goat's eyes glow red, revealing the direction of St. Lucia's eyes burial. They start digging and find the relic. Sophie notices that the goat has disappeared from the mosaic but doesn't mention it. Deborah encounters a frightened girl and sees a demon goat upstairs, which begins moving toward the girl. Deborah saves the girl and locks her in the dorm, but the demon starts banging on the door. An invisible force throws the other girls around. Meanwhile, Kate attempts to help but is confronted by Maurice, who throws her aside. He then attacks Irene, causing the relic to fall from her hands. Just as he's about to kill Irene, Sophie grabs the relic and runs away. Maurice pursues her. Deborah manages to save the girls hiding in another room. They attempt to enter Madam's room through a vent but witness a terrifying sight of Madame and cockroaches. Sophie hides in the bell tower, and Maurice searches for her. The relic begins glowing, attracting Maurice's attention. However, he is unable to harm Sophie due to the relic's protection. The bell tower collapses, and Irene rushes in to rescue Sophie. Sophie is saved, but a wooden plank begins to fall. It gets stuck on a rope, and just as Maurice is about to catch Sophie, the rope releases, causing Maurice to fall. Irene finds Sophie and tells her that she now possesses the eyes of St. Lucia. Maurice gets up again, but Irene uses the relic against him, causing his eyes and nose to bleed. Maurice pleads for Irene to stop saying he will die, and he collapses. Irene and the others believe he's dead, and Irene mourns the time she spent with him. However, Maurice suddenly snatches the relic from Irene's hand, and it starts burning in his hand. As the demon regains his powers, his eyes begin to glow. The demon, in the form of the nun, appears, while the demonic goat charges toward the girls. They manage to enter the chapel and try to stop the goat by closing the door. Meanwhile, the nun strangles Deborah with a chain. Irene tries to rescue Deborah, but Sophie attempts to escape, only to find the nun blocking both ends. The nun lifts Irene into the air and sets her on fire, but she doesn't burn, revealing that she is a descendant of St. Lucy. Irene falls onto the spilled wine on the floor, enraging the demon. Deborah brings Irene aside and tells her that it was a miracle. Irene notices the wine spilling on the ground, and just then, she hears Sophie scream. Irene rushes to save her. The demon traps Sophie, and Maurice approaches her with a knife but stops himself from killing her. Witnessing this, Irene asks Deborah to pray with her, and she turns the spilled wine into Jesus' blood. This act causes Valak, the demon, to be burned and sent back to hell, bringing the movie to a close. If you are interested in such films, please proceed to the next video on the screen, and also share your thoughts about this film in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe. Goodbye.